Let's dive into a really powerful idea today. What if you started treating your life less like a bunch of random things that just happen and more like a high-performance machine? A machine that needs a clean, efficient operating system to run at its absolute best. So let me ask you something. Does this feel familiar? Your calendar is just jammed, you are constantly moving, answering emails, doing stuff. But when the day is done, you kind of look back and feel like you haven't actually moved the needle on anything that truly matters. You're spinning your wheels, but you're not really going anywhere. And here's the thing that most people get wrong. The advice to just be more motivated or find more discipline, well, that's probably not the answer. For most of us, the problem isn't a lack of desire or effort, not at all. The real issue is the lack of a coherent structure. You're trying to run your life on software that's outdated, full of glitches, or maybe it's just not there at all. What you're missing is a personal operating system to manage all your decisions, your actions, and your resources. Okay, so here's our game plan for building that very system. First, we're going to diagnose the symptoms of life without an OS. Then, we'll get clear on what a personal OS actually is. After that, we'll take inventory of your core assets, introduce a seriously powerful decision-making tool, and finally, we'll cover how to keep your new system upgraded and evolving. All right, first things first. Life without an OS. You see, before we can build a better system, we have to really understand the problem. What are the symptoms of this glitch that shows up in our daily lives? Let's take a look.
It probably feels a lot like this, right? You're making big decisions based on fear or a sudden burst of excitement, not logic. You're mistaking activity for actual achievement. Your energy is scattered across a dozen different projects that don't connect. Maybe your investment strategy has one set of rules, but your career choices have a completely different one. And all the while, you're just drowning in useless information and distraction.
So, how do we fix all this chaos? Well, we need a full system reboot. It is time to install your personal operating system, one that's designed specifically for clarity, focus, and intentional action. So what is a personal OS really? This isn't just some fancy to-do list or a productivity hack. It's a deep framework, a unified system that synchronizes everything. It makes sure that your time, your money, and your energy are all being spent according to the exact same core logic. And the impact this can have is huge. I mean, implementing a system like this can cut down on the mental noise, the distractions, and all those unforced errors by as much as 80%. Just think about that for a second. It's about winning by not losing, by simply cutting out all the waste. Okay, so where do we even begin to build this thing? Well, like any good operating system, we have to start with the foundational code. And that means taking a full, totally honest inventory of your core assets. We're going to break these down into three key categories: 3V, 3H, and 3S. First up is 3V, which stands for your three types of capital. Now, we all think about external capital. That's the easy one, cash, assets. But what about your internal capital? We're talking about your health, your ability to think clearly, your resilience. And what about your social capital? The trust you've built with people, the network you have access to. The key here is you have to know exactly what you're working with across all three of these categories. Next, we have 3H, or your three layers of understanding. See, it's not enough to just know what assets you have. You have to understand the game you're actually playing. That means understanding yourself, your biases, your strengths. It means understanding others, what really drives them deep down. And it means understanding society, the bigger trends, the economic cycles you're operating in. And finally, 3S, your three core motivations. Look, every single decision you make is ultimately serving one of these three drivers. Are you in survival mode, just focused on securing the basics? Are you in a growth phase, trying to expand and multiply what you have? Or are you operating from a sense of mission, focused on your long-term impact? Knowing which S you're solving for is absolutely critical. Okay, now we get to the really practical part. Once you've got your foundational code, your 3V, 3H, and 3S, you need a way to actually interact with the world. You need a user interface, and that's where the 7-step decision protocol comes in. This framework turns every decision into a simple checklist. So, before you act, you just run through these questions. What's the context here? What kind of capital am I putting on the line? What's really driving the other side? What's the real trade-off I'm making? What's the specific next move? What's my plan B if it all goes wrong? And what can I learn from this whole thing? It forces you to think systematically about everything. And listen, the rule here is non-negotiable. This is not a friendly suggestion. It's a core command in the operating system. If a decision hasn't been processed through this 7-step filter, you simply do not act. Period. This is your #1 defense against making dumb, emotional, reactive mistakes. Now, obviously, you're not a static person, and the world is definitely not a static place. A good operating system isn't something you install once and then just forget about. No way. It needs regular updates. It needs maintenance to stay effective and sharp.
And the beauty of this is how simple the process is. Every 3 to 6 months, you just schedule a review. You reassess your capital, you update your understanding of the world, you check in to see if your core motivation is shifted, and then you reallocate your resources based on that new information. It's a simple loop that keeps your entire system agile and perfectly aligned with reality.
So what's the bottom line here? What's the ultimate result of making the shift? Well, you go from being reactive to being intentional. You go from being scattered to being focused, from making emotional choices to making structured ones. You stop just working in your life, caught up in the day-to-day grind, and you start working on your life, like an architect designing your own system.
And that leaves us with one final really critical question to think about. Your life is the single biggest and most important investment you will ever manage. So, what operating system is it running on?